cutoff right there, Southbury Road is cut off. Oh, the lane right there.
Right under the bridge.
Yeah.
Open wide, and you can go up to where the drop-off is. That's a nice move.
We've done that, we hit a certain current gets rough, hit a current where we couldn't get past it.
The other one, right, I never saw it. Yeah. Forget how long. Number five.
Hi, you, good, good.
Good. Who are we waiting for?
I don't know, Claire?
Claire
Maybe.
and Mark?
Mark, yeah. Well, Mark doesn't come till 7.
Oh,
What is this?
Charlie's not here either, right? Charlie's supposed to come today too?
In the vinyl.
We can't,
To buy some more shares.
Or go down.
see, we need to talk about financial stuff tonight.
Okay, because that's wrong.
What's that?
Wrong.
This is the original one
Yeah.
that you decided.
That's wrong. So I wouldn't want to be typed out for the people with that.
Yeah. Faye,
I'm sorry?
you got some changes here for that,
Let me see, Margie.
Article
What are you talking
14.
about? Okay, can you come over here? Let me see.
This is going to be crossed out after the word town. It says it right there.
We can't even vote on the minutes.
This way.
Hmm?
Can't vote
We
on
haven't
the
got, we haven't got the,
Okay,
Quorum.
let me find it.
Wrong.
how many? We need 4,
Let me
right?
see what you gave us.
We need 4, yeah, I
Do
think.
you have the, you would have the folder?
See if she's heard.
Do you?
I did.
Can you give
I
me
mean,
a
I'm only
moment?
joking about,
What?
I'm only joking about the 7 o'clock.
Good, how are you?
And the music can't
Who
be
knows?
changed. It'll be changed on the 14th.
This is the one that you used yesterday.
Oh, okay. That doesn't count. I'll just stick that over there.
I don't hold a meeting, but.
They don't have a quorum
We
yet,
don't have a
so-
quorum yet,
Oh, okay.
so you're not holding up. Okay, and we have 6. Three's
I
not
wanted to
good.
do this one, huh?
Well, this is what was submitted.
Good thought.
And I submitted this after that.
The warrant was not open when this was submitted.
To,
This is what was submitted during the open warrant.
Neither.
So it can be changed only on the 14th?
You would be able to change the motion on the town meeting floor, which you have to draft a motion. And you read the motion at town
Okay.
meeting.
This. I can do this instead.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what I gave.
It's right here.
Yeah.
You didn't give it to anyone. This is
No,
what.
no, that's the one right there.
That's the one you wanted to give, but he didn't accept it.
Okay.
Okay?
Finance committee and selectmen, so I go for the finance committee and for the selectmen.
They don't, we don't need that. We have yours right here, what you originally submitted. Your motion, you should hold on to because you actually read that yourself at town meeting.
Okay. When does this get read?
That's in the book.
I would rather it not be in the book, I'd rather it be this way.
What's the
It's-
next? You have to go
No,
off one.
this is what
Where's
was
the rest of your
submitted
crew?
during the open warrant process.
Oh.
Right here, this is what was received.
I expect him to be here, so I'm not sure.
So,
If you would like for the motion to say something different,
Yes,
that's what you will do at town meeting.
Used to be in shoes.
okay,
We do not change what was written and handed in to us,
okay.
okay?
So there's 3 things that I'll be changing. The one that's in the book now, and the one I was gonna change it to, but then I wanna change that to this.
The motion to change to that?
Yeah.
We don't have the motions at this time. You will make that motion for town meeting.
Okay, see, I wanna change whatever's here,
We can't change that
but
right
when
now.
I get up, I will say
When you
that.
get up, yep,
Okay.
okay. Does that make sense?
Uh,
Come into my office outside of the meeting and I can better explain it to you. How's that? Okay?
Okay, 'cause that's wrong.
Okay.
Have we heard from Mark? Anybody? How about Claire?
She said she was coming. I don't have the number.
If we only got 6 people, 3's not coming.
Doesn't matter.
No.
Board's made up of 7, so it's still based
Gotta
Oh,
on,
have
so we still
four.
gotta have
still
4.
based on that.
So if you only had 4, you'd have to be all there.
You have to have
Correct.
4. Oh, yeah? Just even though we don't have 6. Doesn't
No,
matter,
because the
selectmen
committee's
don't
supposed
have
to
a
be
quorum
made
either.
up of
Not at
7.
the moment.
Even if you
Right,
only have
right,
4,
right.
that's, your quorum is 4, it has to be all 4.
How'd you like the show? That's point.
What's that?
Read out 16. We're waiting for the 4th. Oh, you have a microphone. Watch out for the wire.
Okay.
Did they take one cruiser off?
Good. Still haven't seen this, but we just changed it. You can add it back in if you guys submit it. Or one.
I was just reading the article, it said it's 1 for 40,000.
It was. It's however you guys want to do it. We can keep it, we can
But
keep
that's-
it as 80, and they submitted it as 2 for 80. We just wrote it in as 40.
I just got some questions for the selection on this.
Good evening.
You know, the union contract says 1,200, I think it's 1,500.
So, Jim, you can talk to him on that.
Go, well, I
Might as well
question
read
the
the-
selectmen because if you go along with that, do they have to give them the 1,200 in July 1st again?
This is the one.
That's giving them 3,000.
Yeah,
But that's only for the person.
don't rush.
You outfit the officer. and then they
Yeah,
get
we've
there.
never had
Oh,
any
okay.
chance.
I don't have my mouse.
Then on top of that, if we
Was
go
that based on past practice or the contract?
contract, states that that's what they get per year. That's why I'm saying how you can deviate from that, I don't understand
I
that.
think that there's a line in it that says the town should be responsible for outfitting the officers. Period, outfitting the entire DOE officer, and then they get $1,200 per year to maintain their.
But the breakdown that he gave us,
Sorry.
that's a whole.
That is to outfit one officer.
Yeah. Then I'm just curious if we do that, does that open the door for the other officers to file agreements to get them outfitted too?
Because they're not new officers, that's a kind of,
I'm gonna slide.
Property
Here's
officer,
my
any
phone. Which way are you going? Down there?
It says
With
that in the
Andrew?
the
contract.
town also.
How are you?
Previous.
Good. That's for you, and Andrew has the budget,
All the officers. with
Draft
their-
warrant?
With their new
Okay. Hi, Matt. Good.
I can talk to them. I can get a copy of the contract.
Well, too late then.
ready to
Yep,
go?
I'd like to open the meeting. Good evening. We don't have a copy of the minutes.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of, where are we here? Wednesday, September 20th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We want to start going through those
All right, yeah,
those
so,
articles.
so we'll just take it line by line, starting with Article 1.
Can I just ask a
Yeah.
question? Does
Yeah.
anybody in the audience want a copy of the warrant before we start? Okay, let me just, I'll fly those off.
Okay.
Tonight, we're planning to discuss just the articles that are financial in nature.
The board of selectmen will be addressing the others beyond here. We have 2 meetings scheduled.
Right.
We're just addressing the other items. I was just letting people that came to the other items that aren't financial in nature.
Okay. I asked him about this. Apparently, if you would consider this construction loan and this a mortgage, these are cheaper,
Temporary,
cheaper.
yeah.
So he said, you can run them for 10 years.
Really?
So the idea would be to get this, pay the damn project off in 10 years, and never have to go.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah,
Who is the man? Is it bank or state?
I'm not sure who, yeah, wherever you borrow money from, yeah. So, that's an interesting twist. And then I also asked Andrew at some point, probably at the end, to go over this. So everybody's on the same page
As far as the different accounts?
about the plan. I mean, this thing is a kind of plan for going forward. And if we're not all on the same page, you know, we're gonna have problems later, so
Oh, yeah.
we may have to take every week or so, go over those, make sure everybody's happy with them. This is the old one, this is the new one.
All right. So, start with Article 1. Regional dispatch, that's to cover a gap in the assessment from FY16. And that here, I believe that's $24,000 gap.
24,445?
Yeah, that's it?
Yeah.
Yep. That's a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
So I think that was from, we had our original, that was from the original appropriation. I think FY17, there would have been there should have been an adjustment, and I don't think that was ever brought up at town meeting or put into the budget, so now we're basically doing it retroactively. Article 2 is to cover an invoice that was received after the appropriation, or after the FY17 bill payment period for $128 to Solid Waste Solutions. I do have a copy of that bill here, and that's basically all for just general trash trash that the DPW had collected and submitted to
I have a
them.
question on that. I mean, they must have a dumpster at this, I know there's a dumpster outside here. There must be one down to the DPW also. Why wouldn't-
Right,
why
and it
wouldn't
looks like
that
the
be-
invoice was actually it's part of our contract with them that they, they do invoice us.
Over and
This
above-
invoice was actually provided in May and for some reason wasn't actually received until September. So it's basically, we're paying a regular invoice that's
On a
it's
yearly
outstanding.
basis or
Monthly, I believe.
I think
monthly?
it's just as they receive trash at the solid waste at the transfer station, they bill us.
Right.
Yeah, but why do we have something other than a dumpster?
I think a lot of it's like roadside trash, like tires, maybe
Oh.
stuff that we can't put in our dumpster, I'm assuming.
Also the commons and the ball fields and stuff,
Yeah.
they put
Well,
that
yeah,
up
but I
once
mean,
a
that
week.
could go in a dumpster.
Excuse me?
That could go in a dumpster. Tires probably couldn't.
Right, so there was one tire that's actually on this invoice for
Yeah.
that was a $4
Okay.
charge, and then there were 5 additional slips for trash dumping at about, average about $25 each. So,
Yeah, no problem. It just didn't.
yeah, if you guys want, I have the copy of the invoice here.
Adam, do we know why it was invoiced in May and we didn't get it until September? Was there
There's just a note on here that it was accidentally skipped from the paying department, and that the only way to pay it now is to
Yeah.
bring it to town meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
But if we could maybe make a note that it doesn't happen again.
Yes. I'm sure they wish that it didn't have to go to town meeting to pay such a small bill. Article 3 is to appropriate $281.80 to cover a shortfall in capital purchase ban from FY17. That was just a shortfall in the appropriation by that amount. So that's to cover that anticipated shortfall. Article 4, I had proposed, that was $83,200 to cover 1/10 of the bond payment that was taken out last year for capital improvement projects. And the theory behind that is that, most of the projects, or most of the purchases that were made typically have about a 15-year lifespan. We want to make sure we pay this off well before before the serviceable life of these vehicles. So by paying it off within 10 years, I think it's a good game plan. And we had only appropriated the funding for interest payments in the FY17 omnibus budget. So I'm hoping to go to town meeting here to at least fund the principal payment aspect of it.
Now, that money will be transferred
So,
from
right.
to where?
So
Is that the account you were talking about?
right,
setting up?
the stabilization fund is actually the current proposal on
Yeah.
the table. We were having a quick meeting before this one with the finance department, who actually had noted that right now we're $130,000 under our tax levy limit, and we have the opportunity, if the boards thought it was a better option, to raise and appropriate these funds rather than take from that account, because we wouldn't be able to set the tax rate until after the special town meeting. So I guess that's under the consideration of the board as to whether or not we want to raise and appropriate those funds or take that from stabilization. And I guess that's a conversation we can continue. Article 5 was $27,000 for tax title. The original request back at annual town meeting from the treasurer was, I believe, for $45,000 for this line. It was funded at about $9,000. This is significantly lower because we had a number of properties that they weren't anticipating on being paid off. Actually, we had a property owner who owed on multiple delinquent accounts pass away. The heirs took over the property and paid off pretty much all the accounts to that person, so it brought down that number. So the remaining $27,000 is what she would need to basically litigate the outstanding tax title bills. Article 6, as it was submitted by the police department, was actually for 2 cruisers. Based off the financial aspect of it, I have put on here for 1 cruiser, but I don't know if, Jim, if you want to provide any additional information on that.
I think that the chief has pretty much made clear that, our fleet is in dire need of replacement. So we currently have 2 cruisers that are out of full-line service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they ever come back with a price for that second one? They gave us a price for the first one. You said he was waiting. They were supposedly going to some show or something about getting prices, Jim?
Correct, yeah, we have not received a price on the second vehicle yet.
But that 20, on a meeting with the chief, he said the sedan would be around 27,000.
That's
Prior
his
to
price.
outfitting. Yeah,
Should
prior
be.
to outfitting.
That's prior to outfitting, correct.
And then because I noticed on the article it says 40,000.
So the 26,000 is just the vehicle itself. That doesn't include any of the equipment, prisoner retention cage, anything. That's just the vehicle itself.
It's about $10,000 for upfitting. So there's about a maybe $2,000
So that-
buffer
So that 40,000 would cover the sedan,
would cover one sedan.
but not,
Cover one cruiser.
But not the pickup truck.
but not, he
Not
also,
to our best of
he
our.
wants a pickup truck.
Correct.
And you don't have any idea on,
The current pricing for Dodge and Chevy hasn't come out yet,
no.
so that's what we're waiting on.
Now, when that does come out, Jim, will that include being, caged, outfitted, or no?
Yes, we can definitely supply you with a cost for upfit as well, but the upfitting cost of a pickup truck is pretty much gonna be the same as a sedan.
So for us to purchase two, which Jim says they're in dire need, and the chief did two, would be roughly
It'd be
80,000.
80,000, yes.
When we talked about this last meeting,
Correct. Claire had brought up,
it's a board that we would be looking at one for now. Perhaps another one at the town meeting again.
Right. The thought process was that we fund one through special if we only had access to our stabilization funds. Once free cash is approved and we go to annual town meeting, we could replace a second one and then place what would catch up the entire fleet into the operating budget of FY19, and then be on a one-year replacement schedule that we wouldn't have to fund anymore through free cash or stabilization, just budgeting it each year, and then by the 6th year, you're replacing the entire fleet on a replace one every year schedule.
correct.
The only problem with that is if we wait for the second one till spring, it's gonna be like 10 or 11 months with lead time and everything else. And these other cars are gonna cost us another 5, 6, God knows how much to keep on the road.
Right.
So I don't know if we're gonna be saving money, I mean, we should bite the bullet and do it, and then continue on with the program the year after.
Okay.
I'm my thoughts.
Jim, a question for Jim. Jim, would that pickup be used as much as like a sedan?
The pickup would be used probably as, it would be used as much as a sedan, because you can use it for patrol. It does have a prisoner cage in the back, so it can be
Yeah.
used for patrol. But it's also gonna allow us to tow, like we have the traffic trailer that we utilize for traffic control, that we'd be able to tow with that, as well as the signboard, light towers, and also it would allow us to transport our bicycles for bicycle patrol.
Good.
So it gives us a lot more versatility than a sedan, and it's also a lot less expensive than, say, like a Tahoe.
Why I was asking that question, Jim, was because we ran into this in the past, like replacing two vehicles in the same year, and then they wear out at the same time, so you're always replacing two.
Yeah.
We tried to get away from that, of replacing one and staggering, and unfortunately, the town fell on some tough times and it got skipped over for a few years, and that's why we're in the predicament we're at
Well,
now.
I mean, right now, we have 3 cruisers that need to be replaced, and we have 2 cruisers that are completely offline right now. We have 2 cruisers that are out of service.
Really?
Which means that the remainder of our fleet is being used twice as much as it should. So those cruisers are gonna wear out even sooner.
And what is the problems with the two that are offline?
One of the cruisers is the Chief's cruiser, that's a transmission issue, the transmission needs to be replaced.
Mhm.
And the second vehicle is the Crown Victoria, which again is having transmission and engine problems.
Thank you.
You have any problems with a pickup as far as pursuit goes? I mean, if you
It's
needed-
not pursuit rated.
Well, I mean, if you were on patrol and you needed to, so you'd
With
call
it,
somebody else?
you'd have to call your second unit.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 2 units on at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
All of our vehicles currently, with the exception of the Tahoe, are pursuit rated. So even if, even with the Tahoe, it's not pursuit rated, and currently the pickup truck would not be pursuit
Yeah,
rated.
okay.
I guess it's, the discretion of the board of whether or not you want to pursue two vehicles or one at this time. The way I kind of had presented it was based off of what I saw as an acceptable amount to spend out of our stabilization fund. So, there's, as I had mentioned earlier, we also have that option of raising and appropriating, now and putting it onto our FY17 tax rate with the $130,000 buffer that we have.
Excuse me, Jim, if we were to authorize 2 now, when would you get them, do you think?
If we ordered them right now, they probably wouldn't be in service until January at the earliest.
So if we ended up with 2 now, then we wouldn't be able to get another one till when, January of the next year?
So if we,
Next year.
so the next time that we would be able to appropriate any funds for one wouldn't be until next June.
June of,
So, and so with the
2018.
lead times, you're
Yeah, the
looking
next
at
meeting.
possibly next November.
The next town meeting.
in June,
Right,
okay.
right. So based off that lead time, you're probably getting it at this time next year. If an additional cruiser is funded at annual.
Well, the chief explained to us, and it's in our minutes, when, because he said he was really adamant that he wanted 2, and he didn't want to wait till, to buy one right now and then buy one in the annual town meeting, because that was too long of a wait. If we did buy the 2, he says that he cannot wait for the second car and would not be requesting a vehicle in the June annual town meeting. So if we bought the 2 now, according to the chief, he would not be putting in for one at the annual.
He wouldn't be putting for one, he would
But we
probably
said-
putting for not one at the annual, but one in his regular budget, is what I see him doing, not asking for 2.
I don't understand that.
So
because
By his budget.
so one through free cash and one into the FY19 budget, because what I see is, the need for really 3 cruisers, 2 to replace the ones that are down, and 1 to replace one that's about to be retired.
Cruises don't usually go through the regular budget, they go for an article.
Then
Maybe you're
as an
just
FY19 article.
Does he mean
As an
it that way?
FY19,
Just
yeah.
when he said
Yeah.
budget, I said.
Rather than out of your FY18 free cash into your FY19 budget. FY19
Am I trying to
article.
say correct, you're saying
We had quite a lengthy
budget and tax
discussion
levy,
about.
not
we
Yes.
agreed as a-
Correct.
above and beyond for
40
loans
minutes
or
on
other
it, 40 minutes on it.
free cash or stabilization
One at the
is
annual.
fitted
Remember
into the
that.
budget under tax levy
Because you're acting like.
for your
That's
third
right.
cruiser.
Well,
Right.
now we're in another different part
No,
of the
it's
story.
not. He's trying to look at the
We
way
have
we
2
previously
vehicles off the
funded
road.
and how we may start funding things moving forward to keep us from digging a debt that is making it difficult to dig out of.
The only problem, you've got to remember the taxpayer in the town of Barry. If the taxes are gonna go sky high because you're doing it that way, they can't, most of the people in Barry can't afford that.
One cruiser would make the taxes go sky high.
It'll make it go higher than normal,
It'll go up maybe.
yeah.
I guess
And
the-
it'll
Certainly
go up
won't
quite
go
a
sky
bit.
high.
I guess the question for right now is if you guys
Yeah.
wish to recommend 2 or recommend 1 for right now.
Right.
That's the question.
And then also whether or not we want to fund that by increasing the FY17 tax
Yeah,
rate?
see, I'm saying-
Or do we want, I'm sorry, the FY18 tax rate, or do we want to take that out of our reserve, our last line reserves?
Yeah.
Selectmen have any input on this, or?
Yes.
You want one?
Personally, yeah.
And
Now,
you want
sort
one?
them out, sort them out.
What I would like to know better is, you replace the transmission in one of these vehicles, how much more do you get out of it?
Yeah.
The problem, I
'Cause, I mean,
think,
that's a significant upgrade by replacing a transmission.
It could be.
So you might buy another year and a half. And then you're buying one now, you throw in $7,000, get your transmission replaced, not 40,000, and you get a whole nother year out of it. So we're buying a cruiser now, and then we just jump into the replace a cruiser each year. you will still be down one for the next 2 years, but then you're gonna be back in service. So it's just a different way of looking at managing your equipment is, how many more years can you get by throwing in 5,000 a year versus 40,000, especially if it's gonna have to be through a loan or depleting a stabilization type fund to get it, rather than budgeting, say, 10,000 into the tax levy versus 40. That's all I'm saying. And I know it's a pay now or pay later. Either way, you're still paying. So I'm not saying it's
One of the
a better financial decision. It's just a different way of managing the money.
One of the problems though, Matt, is that one that needs the transmission's a 2008.
It's already on its second engine, second.
Right. They replaced the engine, what, a year or so ago, Jim? So you're gonna be putting that money into that vehicle that's almost 10 years old. And it's not like our vehicles. You know, those, they idle all the time. They're on the go, pretty much around the clock. So it's a tough call. No, I'm just trying to look at both ends.
And then, and the other thing we would have to look at is then how are you managing the use of that resource? In other words, you have it, but maybe you don't use it as often as you would the others. You use that, like if you use every vehicle once a week, or, you know, I'm just throwing out a number. So you got, how many vehicles do we have?
Total, 6.
We have 6 vehicles, 3 are currently running. We buy a new one, but if we fix the other one, we might actually get that on the road quicker than waiting for buying a new one and outfitting it. And then when you start your rotation, instead of just living on the 3, you'll end up with 5, 1 new, 1 repaired, 3 of the others. But maybe the one we're repairing skips our rotation until we can get through the next year, that's all. I know it's gonna continue to put more wear and tear on the other cruisers. I'm just thinking out, how do we balance our current funding limit, is really kind of what I'm saying.
I just have a comment. At their last meeting, the chief had come in and he had brought the town mechanic. And someone else was here, what time, I forget. Oh, Dave from White Valley. And they explained, the town mechanic and Dave from White Valley Auto, who does some of the maintenance on the vehicles, they both stated that this one vehicle that's out of service, the chief's vehicle, was on the second engine, second transmission, something like that. The other vehicle, they did not feel the money to put into it to repair it was worth the time you're gonna get out of it, was the explanation the town mechanic and the other mechanic gave.
They actually
I
stated
can
that,
understand, and I'm not even saying, like, I'm not contesting that, I'm just saying,
This,
if we're really working on the limited stabilization withdrawal budget we talked about, and we don't wanna raise taxes this year, 40,000 where we're at. So maybe we talk about another 10,000 to get one of those through another year versus another 40,000, and kind of break up a plan of trying to rebuild how we keep our savings, pay down our debt, and try to make our tax levy address our operating costs moving forward, because right now, we're still tapping into free cash to balance the budget every year. And somehow, we've got to get our debt down so that tax levy, so by buying new stuff, we're not really attacking the debt we already have. And I think this, my thought, and I'll let Andrew speak for himself, part of the focus here was, get them a cruiser because they need it. But the focus of some of this special town meeting stuff was to also kind of start to dig out of that debt. Because every day that debt stays higher is also more interest we pay. So it's not even just paying off the debt in 10 years, it's reducing the interest over time. So I think the focus that will help us is, kind of like you said, when you have years where you don't have the money to buy a new cruiser, we'll buy you a new cruiser now, but we still got to limp through with repairing another one to get to the next budget year. Because the real focus is dig out of the debt so we can create a better means to fund the capital plan. As we do our 5-year plan, we're looking at 5 years down from now, how are we gonna come up with the funds to pay for the 5th cruiser they're gonna need? Well, we won't be able to do it if we don't really focus on the debt and maintain the savings inside stabilization, and I believe create the new kind of capital stabilization
Capital
account that you want to, with the next free cash.
Right. Like to
Balance that
establish
comes
and to
through.
say that that's the funding source for what our capital plan is going to be from, rather than just saying, we're gonna draw down our free cash to nothing because our capital plan says we need to stay on top. So,
So all I'm trying to say is there's a little bit of a bigger picture to why we started with I know you need two, you actually need 3 cruisers, but right now let's buy you 1 and see if we can get the other one keeping you through to the next town meeting.
Till the June town meeting, so that.
Yeah, the June town meeting, not,
You know,
and
not
get one
Yeah.
then.
a
And
whole
then we'll have
year
a better-
from this date.
and then we'll have a better idea too, as far as what our free cash is going to be, you know, and being able to support it, but also kind of what we have in anticipated costs in FY19, and knowing whether or not we can put that right into raise and appropriate line item to bring us right up to that line. I think that we can achieve it, but I just think that right now, taking $80,000 to pay for one capital line is a tough pill to swallow.
Well, it's gonna be more than the 80, because this is for the sedan.
Right.
Truck is more,
Right.
quite a bit more.
There's still a concern as to how the vehicles are used, as far as, you know, the mileage aren't, it's not evenly distributed. Typically, if they see 2 new vehicles, I'd expect to see those things driven almost 24 hours a day. They're right up to the same thing, that we have 8 vehicles in the same situation. We really need to see a plan developed for the usage. It tells us how far they're driven in a year, typically in a day, typically in a year, and how we allocate those miles evenly amongst the vehicles, so they start to last a set period of time. So I'm hesitant to put 2 vehicles out until we start to see a plan developed that's gonna show us how they're gonna last, and we're not gonna wind up like this next year, with 2 gone again, and these 2 with 40, 50,000 miles apiece on them already.
Maybe in 3 then.
We need something, you know,
Yeah,
she's
it's not
getting a
easy.
lot dumped on them here
not
because this is how we received it, but it needs to be addressed, it needs to be taken under control. And we need to allocate those miles to vehicles in a planned manner. Not like, let's see who gets a new car, who gets in first today, and the new car always goes out. That can't be. It has to have days to sit like any other vehicle, so that they'll last their designated, their lifespan. We're not gonna get 5 years out of all these, or 6 years in a rotation, unless they all have some sit time. So I'd like to see that plan developed before we start putting 2 or more vehicles out. I think 1 is definitely needed now, and hopefully get 1 in June. But I'd like to see that plan developed between now and June, to allocate where the miles are gonna go and have a better idea. How can we predict how long they're gonna last? Until we know how often they're used and how much they're gonna be used.
If we were to go with Matt's suggestion of purchasing 1 and fixing up the other one, how much money should we allocate to fix up a cruiser to hold them over till the annual?
10 grand.
Because he sure doesn't have that in his budget right now to put a transmission or something in a cruiser, correct,
Yeah.
James?
You also have to realize that if we get one in June, in actuality, we're not actually receiving the cruiser until a
Right.
year from now.
Right.
Right, you get it in the fall. So, but Matt was saying, we purchase 1 now and then fix up one of the other ones.
Right.
Whichever one would be in a better shape.
Pretty sure the one that they're looking to replace is that 2008 one. That one's completely out of service, and that one's the one with the issues with the transmission. The second one, I believe, is more of a rust issue or a body
The
rust
Crown
issue.
Victoria has body rot going on right now, and that's also on its second transmission.
Okay.
Well, hopefully the new ones we buy are gonna have transmissions that last 5 years.
What's going on with the Impala?
The Impala, again, is just limited because of the high mileage, and the Impala is not a police-rated vehicle.
Right.
That Impala is a civilian.
That's the problem.
version, and it is, we had 2 Impalas at the same time. One was recently replaced with 3033, our newest cruiser. Those 2 Impalas were purchased back in 2010 as a stopgap. So and 3030, the second vehicle that we're looking to replace, it has given us sterling service, but it's not a police-rated vehicle. And it's at the end of its rope, and it had a hard time passing inspection. If a cruiser doesn't pass inspection, then it's no good to us.
And I think the police chief did say he planned on buying extended warranties,
Yes.
where that had not been done in the past either.
will the extended warranty cover police service though?
Yeah.
I believe so, that's what he.
It's just, yes.
I think there was a special, yeah,
Yeah.
special police package.
No, you can get, if you buy a police rated
Right.
vehicle, they'll give you a police rated warranty for it.
And obviously, all of those are over, you know, the three in the end, they're over 6 years old anyway, so they'd be well over any warranty, period.
And I understand that the big, part of what the other thing is getting back to is replacing the vehicle every year. We did last year with the 3033. We do another one this year, we do another one next year. Now we're back into a planned, scheduled capital plan. If we buy two now, in 2 years, we bought 3 cruisers again. So half our fleet got replaced in 2 years. And in 5 years, we're gonna have to replace 3 cruisers again, all at the same time. And if it seems to follow the standard progression here, where you're kind of, you got 5 years and then you're crossing your fingers to see where you land after that. So, and you're saying the Crown Vic already had a transmission replaced?
The Crown Vic, I believe, is on its second transmission. Either
That's only
transmission or
7
engine.
years, so if you were replacing a transmission in less than 7 years already, and it needs an, did you say that's what, no, the Explorer needed the
The
transmission. The
Explorer
Crown
needs
Vic's got the
transmission,
body
Crown
rot.
Vic's got body rot and engine issues.
So, I'm just trying to think out, I just don't wanna run into this again in 3 or 4 years, and that's why I'm kinda,
Well, and the chief and I have worked on spreading the workload out so that, you know, if we get a new cruiser, we don't want to hammer it in the first 2 years and raise the mileage on it. You know, we try to spread it out throughout the shifts so that it does get at least 8 hours off, you know, or 16 hours off. I mean, we have 2 cruisers out 24/7, so.
you don't have a lot of rotation to get.
If we're down to 3 cruisers, we've got 2 cruisers every, you know, out all the time for 24/7, so that's not a lot of rest for this cruiser.
So there's kind of 2 different ways we can do it, depends on how we want to look at it. I mean, you could theoretically purchase one cruiser, I don't know if we have to do it as 2 separate articles or not, but you could purchase one cruiser through raising and appropriating in FY17, and one cruiser through taking out a stabilization, I'm sorry, in FY18, and stabilization, and get them both done now, or it goes to, or wait until, or do one now, go till annual, do one through free cash and one in the 19 budget. Now, when you do that, you're probably going to be ordering both of them at the same time anyway, and getting 2 new cruisers at the same time. So it really kind of is, do you want to do it now or do you want to do it later? Which tax, or which fiscal year do you want to impact?
And not to get lost just on the cruisers, we have the same issue we've had historically with the fire department vehicles. They're doing their best and they're usually buying used, they don't even get new. Now, a lot of their equipment costs a lot more than a cruiser, don't get me wrong. But I know come annual town meeting, they're gonna be yelling for another replacement that I think they may have even deferred one that they had wanted, but they knew they couldn't get a last one or something. They got a couple engines that are old also, even though we just got them a couple new things with some, last special town meeting, did we do it? Where we approved? Yeah. So, we got the ladder truck, we replaced an engine in the last 2, but neither of them are brand new, right? They were both used and refurbished. What I'm trying to find out here also is when we're looking at the cost of a $40,000 to get a cruiser and outfit it, are we looking at right off the lot brand new cruiser, or are we looking at something that might be last year's edition where you get a little less? You know, the old saying, you drive it off the lot and it depreciates immediately. And secondly, I really think it's gonna be harder and harder to tell everybody else, no, you don't get a vehicle, and then in a year and a half, we buy 3 new cruisers. Well, we keep telling everybody else, live on the nuts and bolts and the glue you're keeping your vehicle together on. And so I'm just trying to keep that as a balance when we look at how we make a decision on this.
Well,
I would almost recommend 40,000 for the one, and then revise it to add 10,000 or even 12,000 if you think it's warranted to re-outfit one of the Impala or the Crown Vic or something to make it get through. The Crown Vic might need 10,000 and just work. Maybe the Impala can get outfitted to become police worthy or whatever. I don't know what it takes,
No,
so.
I think that's part of the build, like that, you're talking braking transmission, that's when they say cruiser package.
Well, cruiser package may be suspension, it may be
Well, it's
a
cool.
variety of things. It may be upgrading your
Cool.
fuel injector, I don't know.
Right, you would know that.
Yeah, the alternators are different, everything's different, batteries.
But I don't know what it would take to upgrade that.
I don't know if the
Can you do that
transmissions
with
are any different though,
12,000?
are they? Yeah,
They may be nowadays.
Yeah. I don't know. Nowadays, they're pretty reliable in regular cars.
Yeah, well,
But
they-
they're
they
not
drive
even
regular
Crown,
cars.
yeah, they're not even Crown Vics anymore, now they're Interceptor packages.
What if we just got you one SRT?
But a lot of times all you're doing is replacing the engine with a brand new rated engine, and how much does that cost to replace the engine?
A cruiser rated vehicle is chassis on up. I mean, there's no way to upgrade
Right.
a civilian model car
Right.
to become
Yeah,
police
can't-
rated.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to buy 5 years into this, I'm saying, what would it take to make that better to get you through the next year and a half?
I don't know if it's worth it or not, Matt.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to me like we're throwing good money after bad.
Exactly.
All right.
That's what I
Now,
think too.
which is the one, the chief at the last meeting had said there was one he was gonna take?
He was gonna take whatever one was was the closest to being taken out of service,
Right.
so.
So when we get if we get two new cruisers,
Say you get
those.
one,
okay,
give us the scenarios.
He said he was
That
gonna
new-
take
the
the
new cruiser will
Tahoe.
go
Here.
into
He's gonna take the
patrol
SUV,
rotation.
if he got the
Okay.
The
truck.
chief will take the oldest
No.
cruiser,
No,
cruiser closest to retirement, out of the fleet and use that.
So would that be the Impala?
Well, if you give us a one new cruiser,
Yeah.
then that replaces the Explorer, and the chief would probably take either the Crown Vic or the Impala.
The one with the
But again,
least
it's-
rust, probably.
Yeah, but again, if that goes down,
I
then we're
wanna say
back
he
in the
was
same
telling us
boat.
he was gonna take the Tahoe.
I thought that's what
That's what he
he
said.
But is that,
If we get the pickup
I
truck,
thought
then
that's
he'll
what
take
he
the
said.
Tahoe.
Yeah.
cause I thought he was gonna say he would take the Tahoe.
I think it was if they replaced the three, the 30, 30, 31, and 32, because that one does not have the four-wheel drive, didn't have the
Got
four-wheel.
all-wheel drive,
right,
not
It has
four-wheel drive.
all-wheel drive.
Oh, that's the
Oh, the Tahoe?
Interceptor.
Oh, it was the Civic, because it was the Civic, or civilian package.
The Interceptor's the one.
Yeah,
Both the Tahoe and the Impala are civilian versions, they're not police
Okay.
packages.
Right.
And the Interceptor's the one with the all-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive.
Correct.
right.
Which he said he didn't like. He said that didn't
Yeah.
do too well in the winter, I guess. So it's stuck between a rock and a hard spot.
Yes, indeed.
You buy one, you buy two, you buy one and spend some money on one of these ones that hope to live through till July, or will actually be next fall. Because if you do approve a new one at the annual town meeting, you won't be receiving that cruiser till October, November. And if you were going to sink some money into one of them, I would like to see a mechanic's point of which one would be better off putting the money into. Because I don't know vehicles that great. You know, which one would you be better off to sink the money in?
John?
Yeah, thank you. I think my thought on this was, originally, I think the chief had spoken to us about 3 cruisers, and I thought doing one now would get us started. I hadn't anticipated originally doing anything with repairs. And I'm not sure the vehicle's worth doing it to. But it just comes into my mind, how much do we want to spend at a special town meeting when some of these appropriations are really annual? And I guess that's the question I had. One reason I think I supported the one is it's a special town meeting. You know, it would get us started. I personally don't want to put any more money into a vehicle than we have to, because I just don't think it's worth bothering with. fine, but that was my only thought when we were trying to set these things up, is that we, you know, some of these do belong on the annual. When I heard the three, I have to admit, I was a little. I think Claire, you were there.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's just what we want to do with a special versus the annual, I guess would really come down to it. And I'm sure the first question you're going to get is, why are you throwing that much money into a vehicle that's coming off the road? I mean, it's not even on the road, I guess, right at the moment, but, so.
I feel we should go with
Way there, I think,
the one
a new
for
vehicle is
special, and then the
10,000,
one
so
at
you